I still can't believe I'm alive to tell this story. It's been months since that night, and I'm still haunted by what happened. My friends and I thought it would be a fun idea to try psychedelic mushrooms. You know, a bit of an adventure, a break from the mundane reality. We had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. It was a chilly Friday night. The air was crisp and the stars seemed to twinkle more brightly than usual. We gathered at Sam's place, a cozy cabin on the outskirts of town, far from the noise and lights of the city. There were 5 of us: Sam, Lisa, Mike, Jamie, and me. We had all known each other for years, trusted each other. Maybe that's why we felt so safe embarking on this wild trip together. The mushrooms were laid out on the coffee table, dried and wrinkled, looking innocuous enough. We each took our share, washed them down with some orange juice to mask the taste. I remember the excitement, the nervous laughter, the anticipation of the unknown. We settled down in the living room, the soft hum of music in the background, the warm glow of the fireplace casting dancing shadows on the walls. At first, it was everything we expected. Colors became more vivid. Patterns started to swirl and pulse in the corners of my vision. We laughed at silly things, marveling at how the mundane could suddenly seem so magical. But then, things took a turn. I don't know if I took more than the others, or if my mind was just more susceptible. But my trip veered sharply into darkness. I remember closing my eyes and seeing a kaleidoscope of shapes and colors. It was beautiful at first, like a living painting. But then, the colors started to bleed together, forming grotesque faces, screaming silently, their eyes burning into my soul. I opened my eyes, but the faces were still there, floating in the room around me, their mouths moving as if they were trying to tell me something horrifying. I tried to shake it off, to tell myself it was just the drugs, but the hallucinations grew more intense. The room around me began to warp and twist. The walls stretched and contracted like they were breathing, shadows elongated, reaching out with claw-like fingers. My friends' faces distorted, their features melting and reforming in impossible ways. I couldn't tell if they were talking to me or if their voices were just echoes in my mind. I stumbled to my feet, needing to get away, needing to find some semblance of reality. I made my way to the door, each step feeling like I was wading through molasses. The door seemed to stretch away from me, but I finally reached it and burst outside. The night air hit me like a slap, but it did little to clear my head. Outside, the world was even more twisted. The trees loomed over me like ancient sentient beings, their branches writhing like serpents. The ground seemed to pulse with a dark energy, and the stars above flickered like dying embers. I started walking, not knowing where I was going, just needing to move, to escape the madness that was consuming me. As I walked, the world around me continued to shift and change. I found myself in a dense forest, the trees closing in around me, their branches like skeletal hands reaching out to grab me. I stumbled through the undergrowth, the shadows moving with a life of their own. I could hear whispers all around me, voices speaking in a language I couldn't understand, but the tone was clear. They were angry, and they were coming for me. I broke into a run, my heart pounding in my chest. The forest seemed to go on forever, a labyrinth of darkness and terror. I tripped and fell, the ground beneath me feeling like it was alive, pulsating with a sickly green light. As I lay there trying to catch my breath, I felt something brush against my leg. I looked down and saw tendrils of darkness creeping up my body, trying to pull me into the earth. I screamed and thrashed, tearing myself free, and continued running. I don't know how long I ran, but eventually I burst out of the forest and found myself on the edge of a vast, dark ocean. The waves crashed against the shore with a deafening roar, the water black as ink. The sky above was filled with swirling clouds, illuminated by flashes of lightning. I could see figures in the distance, standing on the shore, watching me. They were tall and thin, their bodies elongated and twisted, their faces hidden in shadow. They beckoned to me, and despite my fear, I felt compelled to go to them. As I approached, I could see their eyes, glowing with an eerie light, and I realized they were the same faces I had seen in my earlier visions. They spoke to me, their voices a chorus of whispers that echoed in my mind. They told me that I was crossing into another dimension, that I had opened a door that could never be closed. They said that I was no longer tethered to my reality, that I would forever be a wanderer between worlds. I wanted to run, to escape their words, but I was rooted to the spot, unable to move. The ground beneath me began to shift. and I felt myself sinking into it, being pulled into the dark, swirling mass. I screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the roar of the ocean and the whispers of the figures around me. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. I found myself back in Sam's living room, lying on the floor, drenched in sweat. My friends were gathered around me, their faces filled with concern. They told me that I had been thrashing and screaming, that they had tried to calm me down but couldn't reach me. The trip was over, but the effects lingered. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had touched something beyond our reality, something dark and malevolent. I still see the faces in my dreams, hear the whispers in the silence. I feel like I'm still being watched, still being hunted by the shadows I encountered that night. The mushrooms were supposed to be a fun escape, a way to explore the depths of our minds. But for me, they opened a door to a nightmare that I can never fully escape. So if you've ever been tempted to try psychedelics, remember my story. Remember that there are places in the mind that are better left unexplored, doors that should never be opened. Because once you do, there's no going back.